things aren't going so well for me right now. And his back injury really lingered. I still don't really know why he even started in the Vuelta, given how bad that injury was, but it lingered through the winter. So I'm actually surprised he's starting to race this early. But given that, a bad winter of training, the momentum on the upshot of Gaudu, I wouldn't say Pinot's done, but I'm not sure that he's lining up for a good 2021 season by any means.
So who else do you see? You're starting with the French, so keep going. I don't know if you have more French or other people.
I don't think anybody big on the French team. I guess we'll give a nod to AG2R. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. No Bardet this year on AG2R. They've brought in Greg Van Avermaet. He's going to be there. They just got Ben O'Connor over from NTT, who took that stage at the Giro. That was really fun to look at. And I think one of their guys that'll hunt stage wins that actually might have a good shot is Nans Peters. He'll be in this race. He won that stage of the was it stage 8 of the Tour de France last year. His only elusive Grand Tours from a stage victory perspective is the Vuelta. He won a stage of the Giro a couple years ago. So I think he might be a guy that's out hunting stages this year. So it'd be interesting to see how he does.
How do you see, and I'm just going to kind of pick on some teams here and by the way, chime in at any time that you want to go a different route, but what do you think of Quintana's chances coming back? I know he just had some surgery, knee surgery, seemed to be fine. Also, I don't know if you've heard anything more about this with he and his brother from, was it the Tour where they were kind of investigated and then not? Yep. I don't know. No,
so they were cleared. Yeah. Okay. I mean, this was a full-on raid. This had this had like all the looks of like 10 years ago written all over it, but yeah, so they were cleared, so they're scot-free and everything's good there. However, I'm not particularly bullish on Quintana this year. He was off the bike for a while. He came in with such momentum last year, and it looked so great. I mean, this will be where we know if he is good or if he's not. But I'm not particularly bullish given how much time he was off the bike. I mean, it was double knee surgery, and it's I mean, 30 years of riding that bike. I guess his baseline's pretty high, but given his age, given the time off the bike, I'm actually not super bullish on him for 2021.
Who do you think? Who are you looking for in this race? Anybody in particular? I have kind of my thoughts.
Okay, yeah. So one guy that is going to be really interesting for me this year is Giulio Ciccone on Trek. He wore yellow for 2 days in 2019. He actually didn't win, but he was second on Planche de Belfi. He actually interrupted Alaphilippe's stint. And then last year, he just had a terrible year. I mean, he was only 24 at the time when he put the yellow jersey on. Had a horrible year last year. He had COVID. He had surgery on his septum. It was just a number of things. He pulled out of a Grand Tour with bronchitis, but he looked really good last week in Provence. He was in that attack all day with Alaphilippe and I think it was Johnny Moscon. He pulled off a second place on one of the punchier stages, and he wasn't in the front up Ventoux, but he was in that first pack behind him. So with Richie Porte gone off Trek and Nibali kind of teetering towards the end of his career, I got Giulio Ciccone in a leadership role for Trek this year. I think he's going to lead them at a Grand Tour and has a shot at a podium. So he's probably the one I've got eyes on, regardless of how he finishes in here. But just for this season, I want to see how he pulls off here in these mountains.
Wasn't he also the mountains jersey winner at the 19 Giro? The same year he won had the yellow jersey for a little bit as well. So I mean, he did quite well. That was when Carapaz won. So he was climbing and racing really well at the Giro that same year, and phenomenal year actually for him. He lose the yellow jersey, had it for a day, and then lost it to Alaphilippe. Is that what you said?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. No, I was looking there. I mean, that team itself. I mean, you got Baca Mollema here, Julian Bernard. Obviously Kenny Ellison, and then Ciccone, Tom Squeens. I mean, some good support for a 3-day race. But I was interested in how that team would go. I'm glad you brought him up, because not having Port there, and we can talk about Ineos now if you'd like. It looks they're bringing their
huge crew,
huge crew, and very Anglo. I mean, I was noticing here, Pitka is a really interesting one to look at, but they're not really, sometimes they could really load it up with a bunch of Colombians and some other, but this is a bunch of English guys, really.
Look, this might be what their Tour de France lineup looks like. I mean, short of Richie Carapaz, who they said will likely ride the Tour de France, but he's still down in Ecuador climbing up like volcanoes. But
I saw that.
Geraint Thomas, Sivakov, I expect him to be there. Narvaez. This is kind of looks of what they're probably going to throw at the Tour de France. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And G needs these miles in his legs because I mean he put himself on the pointy end of Provence, but he's not in form yet. Not after that his hip and then he fell off his bike again in the ice and separated his shoulder. I mean he's got some miles to put on those legs before he's ready for that.
They have Thomas, Rohan, Gegenhardt, Narvaez, Pidcock, Sivakov, and Van Barle. You think that's the Tour team? You're not going to bring Bernal or Carapaz up to the Tour then?
Well, so this is actually something I don't totally get. So right now what they're saying is that Bernal is going to ride the Giro and Richie Carapaz is likely to go to the Tour de France. And I don't really understand this mentality because when I look back at Egan Bernal's trajectory, I mean, he came out of 2018. I mean, it was just like a rocket launching. I mean, 2018 takes the Tour of California. 2019, he wins Paris-Nice. He wins Tour de Suisse. He wins Tour de France. I mean, it was just like the straight trajectory up. And even in coming into 2020, he was looking pretty good. He won Occitanie. So it's like, okay, that's like kind of one of the early lead-up races to Tour de France. And then he gets this back injury, and it's like everything's forgotten about. And I get that this course for the 2021 Tour de France doesn't suit him like the 2020 course might have, with a little bit more time trialing, not as many high mountain finishes. But I'm just really surprised that Ineos isn't like, look, this guy was like on stratospheric growth to the top of the sport, won the Tour de France as like the youngest guy ever at the time. And they're not just like backing him as their horse. And like they're Ineos, they could always have option 1B. But it surprises me that they're not like, look, this is our best rider. We're going to throw him in there. We're going to bet on him. They're like kind of like, Bernal, he'll kind of do this and he'll kind of do that. And well, we'll send him to the Giro because, the Tour de France course isn't that great for him. Meanwhile, they're saying they're going to send Richard Carapaz, who is not a good time trialer and also has his best strengths in the high mountains. So it's not a good course for him either. So I don't really get, maybe Ineos knows something about Bernal's injury, or they're just not convinced that he's going to return to the form, and not just the form, but the trajectory he was on. So I'm like very surprised by all that. But I think, you're going to see probably 5 of these guys on their Tour de France squad. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Pidcock. Sivakov was someone they were saying last year. They were like, Sivakov's in great form. He could be like a 1B option. So
I think it was the Dauphiné. The Dauphiné, Sivakov was looking well, and then I think he had a crash and kind of put him in behind things. Gegenhardt, it'll be interesting to see what they do with. They have so many options, and you make a good point about Bernal. But then when Bernal broke out, you had the Alaphilippe year, and it was kind of like Froome and G were kind of up there, and all of a sudden you have Roglic, you have Pogačar, you have Carapaz, and you have this like influx just pushing the boundaries, and it somehow we all of a sudden think Bernal's like kind of passé now. He's exactly the thing of the it's odd. But maybe they know something about his injury, or they're just, I don't know what they're doing. Your analysis could be spot on or it could be way off, and I think totally. either one are valid. Okay, so what about Froome? I mean, let's talk about Israel Startup Nation. They have Woods going in there, Sepp Van Mark, who seems to be happy going over there. Bevan, Hofstetter, Del Impey, Dan Martin, and Chris Nealands. So a decent team for them, but I almost think that they might be going with Woods or Dan Martin in this race.
Yeah, I mean it's got to be Dan Martin. I mean he was so close to getting on that podium at the Vuelta, finished fourth in the end. And this is what I find interesting because I actually would have really liked to see them put Dan Martin and Froome in the same race, whether they put Froome in this one or Martin over in the UAE Tour, because we got to see how this plays out, right? Everyone's saying, okay, Froome's going there, he's trying to win his 5th Tour de France title, but like, is he their best GC guy or is it Dan Martin? I don't know. So I'm actually really interested to see how this whole thing plays out. And Froome did an off-season interview where he talked about just his mental approach, and it sounded like he kind of relented from kind of the steadfastness of him going for his 5th title. And it was more, hey, we're going to look at what's best for the team. Of course I want to do that, but we're going to take a step back and, do what's best for the team. And I thought that was a bit of a change in perspective. And maybe that was him coming to realizations on how he truly feels about his form, his recovery. That was before his stint in California, where it seems like he actually gained quite a bit of confidence and made a lot of progress on his rehab with the Red Bull team. But it'll be interesting, and I want to see them side by side and how that begins to evolve. But Rusty Woods, awesome. I think he's going to be a big hit for him this year.
Well, you're a runner, so you should adapt to liking him. The Dan Martin thing, I mean, I think he overachieved last year from kind of what we've seen. And then obviously Froome doesn't really know where he's at. And he had to resort to, raising his hand to take bottles and everything else for Carapaz in the Vuelta, because he just wanted to be able to hang on. And I think his was so it's such a weird, how are we going to mix these things? Dan gets his best result, and Froome, former, winning 5 tours. I think those two guys, though, I really think Dan Martin is more of a team guy, and he understood. He's kind of like understood the what he got last year, and then it might be just a little bit out of proportion. And we'll talk about Froome. Let's save that for later. I have some other Froome stuff. UAE, they have Pogacar is not in this one, so I don't really want to talk about them. Dombrowski, he seems to be a guy that has been in the flux, in the mix, a lot of potential. Vauders has always said if the Tour was run on power meters as Zwift alone, he'd probably win. But I don't know, anything about Dombrowski or UAE that you see exciting?
I'm much more excited about their firepower at the UAE Tour, where because they've got Pogacar, Hershey as well, and then Gaviria. So they're throwing all the cannons at the UAE Tour. Okay, so
you pick another team, or if you want to go through any more, we can do so. I'm just trying to look through here to see if there's any excitement. Fulsang, with Astana, that's he's got a lot of potential. It'll be interesting to see his year.
Yep. Yeah, no, I like Fulsang a lot. They just came out. They said he's going to limit he's not going for GC in the Grand Tour. He's going to probably do just one Grand Tour this year, try to hunt stages, no GC attempts, and he's going to go after the classics. And he raced tremendously in the classics last year.
Right.
I was actually quite disappointed that they didn't put him in the Tour de France last year. This guy's like getting better with age. It's quite incredible. But yeah, he's still got it. He's riding well.
Well, you say last year in the classics, but remember the year before, didn't he win 1 or 2 classics? I want to say as well in 2019. Did he win Liège? That's what I want to say. I want to say he won that, or Amstel, or one of those. He's definitely not a slouch as for that. But and then obviously this year he won Lombardia. So like you said, he did well. Maybe he is understanding his abilities and just focusing, instead of these guys, they win the 7-day stages races and they're like, oh, I'm going to win the Tour de France next, and then top 10 is all they're able to do, rather than him just saying, hey, maybe I'm just not going to worry about that.
Yep, that makes sense. I think he was also the only, or at least the top finisher in the Worlds last year that didn't compete in the Tour de France.
Oh yeah. So he did not do any Grand Tour last year. Is that what you're saying?
No, he did the
Giro.
The Giro. Yep.
Okay.
So you said you had a pick. Did we cover your pick?
My pick for this race?
Or your top riders to call out?
No, I was just really what I wanted to think about and watch. The one I'm most excited to watch here is Tom Pidcock. He, went in the Baby Giro last year. Is that right? I think that's what he won, and it looked like in stellar fashion. And then one of the only guys really to kind of push Wout and Van der Poel in the cross races this year. I'm kind of excited to see what he can do. Like to see these new phenoms come on, and they just don't care anymore. They're like, oh, I'm 20, but I don't really care. I'm gonna race and act like I'm gonna win anyway. So that's really the one I was looking at to kind of see. And then just the Ineos in general. They're save for, I was going to say they had a horrible year, and then you go, oh, they destroyed it in the Vuelta. Not in the Vuelta. They did good in the Vuelta, but the Giro, they absolutely crushed that race. Yeah. Unreal. I guess it's just, you look at the Tour and you go, it's kind of shitty.
I think they should let Pidcock just let it rip, by the way. Especially when they get to the classics, like a Paris-Roubaix, just send it. Ganna too. Just see what they do. Ineos has performed so poorly in single day races and the classics. I think you just let them rip. Let's see what they got.
Right. Another one is Thomas. I just kind of baffled by some of these guys that, like him, that you have, and maybe it's the I mean, Bernal wins a Tour and then doesn't have a good year. You know, he wins a Tour and then doesn't do well. And like last year, he's having that is. And I'm just kind of baffled at the fall off that he did. So is to me significant. Well, I guess after the year after he won it, he was up there with Bernal. But, you know, last year, I don't know what happened last year. Maybe you have do you have personal insights to that?
Nothing crazy aside from listening to his podcast, but it doesn't really give you much info. He kind of said he struggled in quarantine. Like, you know, he actually did a really cool thing. He did three shifts of what the NHS would do. He did 3 days of 12 hours on his bike on Zwift to raise money, which was really cool. But like he said, he struggled. And that was like something we forget about is a lot of these guys were locked home or, you know, they weren't at camps, they weren't racing. And he just had a bad quarantine, didn't put the miles in or didn't put in the efforts. And
But, you know, you think of that and there's Matthew Heyman, you know, wins the Paris-Roubaix a few years ago, where famously he was riding on Zwift all year, you know, training because he couldn't. I don't remember, he was injured, and so that was his training. So, I mean, you know, Geraint Thomas, maybe it was just a thing of like just not motivated to do that. I mean, he obviously could have been indoor riding all the time, but you know, I'd kill myself if I had to do that. So. Okay, UAE Tour. That's the one you said you're really excited about because of the legendary landscape out there for bike racing, right?
Actually, they've got a couple cool finishes, you know, aside from the desert signs, but they finish at the Jumeirah, the Palm Island one day, and then out on some islands on the final stage in Abu Dhabi. So it's actually pretty sweet. Right.
I mock. And then, you know, you go back when it was first, all these different races out there in the desert, you know, this one I think started in 2015, I want to say. So you know, the early winners were more of the sprinter types, but they throw in some mountains. They have a time trial and I think 2 at least finishing climbs. So what do you remember about this race last year?
Well, you get a really decisive mix. You got both like top of the class GC guys and all the heavyweights. So I mean, last year at this race you had Ackerman, Caleb Ewan, you had Fernando Gaviria, Sam Bennett, Dylan Groenewegen. So like you get all the heavy hitters. So you see pretty early who's in form. And what it gives you more than anything on the sprinters is like who's the top end heavyweight sprinter, because you don't have these big technical turns into these towns. It's just like a highway. I mean, it's just like open road. So, you know, who's got the top speed? So you see that. And then, who's got the early form? You're climbing up like Haut Dam or Jebel Hafit. That's like really the only climb. Last year they did it twice. So few climbs up there. They got to hit them a couple times. But what we saw last year was actually very indicative of what was going to play out. So on those 2 stages, and again, this was the first race that got canceled from COVID. So after stage 5, they said a couple of people got locked in their rooms for a couple of weeks. But on the 2 times that they had climbs, your top 4 in varying order were Adam Yates, Tadej Pogačar, Alexei Lutsenko, and David Gaudu. So, I mean, we know Pogačar won. Yates wore yellow for a little bit. Lutsenko won a stage of the Tour de France, and David Gaudu won 2 stages of the Vuelta. So quite consequential in terms of what this meant in terms of a lead into what we can expect from those guys for the season.
Yeah, no, very good points. And I do have to correct myself going back here. I'll just read off the winners from 15 on. Esteban Chavez, who says he can win the Tour de France now. Tanel Kanger, Rui Costa, Valverde, Roglic, and Yates. So kind of I mean, every one of those guys, everyone should say, oh yeah, I know them. I mean, Rui Costa, world champ, you know, Valverde, world champ, Esteban Chavez and whatnot. So esteemed route, these little grouping there that you have. Okay, let's take a look at the stages. And once again, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but we will give it a shot. So stage 1, let me know if you can even see that profile. Very flat. So obviously a sprinter's day. Do you know who the sprinters are that are going to be out there?
Yeah, so we've got most. It's not as loaded as last year, but we're going to have Gaviria, we're going to have Ackerman, Giacomo Nizzolo coming off his win in Almeria, Case Bowl, Caleb Ewan, Sam Bennett, and then I don't know their form, but Ilya Viviani and Andre Greipel.
Who's your favorite sprinter?
Arnaud Demar. For this year.
Okay.
That's my guy.
That's your pick for this year. I could see that, but is he one that you pull for, or are you just, that's your pick?
I didn't really like him until like last year, to be honest. He wasn't my favorite. It kind of sprint. I like Caleb Ewan. I'd say he's like my favorite sprinter. I'll go with him, but my money's on Demar this year.
No, I think that's a good pick. Holding on to cars, was it? Was he been an issue with Milan Sanremo, and then I think in the Tour de France he was blamed again for that sometime a few years ago. I think no, I like that. What do you think of Cavendish's chance? Is he out here at all in this race? I don't think he is.
I don't think he's in the lineup. No. A lot of folks, so I did a poll on this. I should have pulled it up before I came on. A lot of folks still think, I think the majority of folks believe that Cavendish will win again, like that he will, and again means this season, because I have to imagine this is his last shot. I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe that Cavendish will win again. I think he has a lot to bring, but he won't win. And he was in Almeria, but he had a mechanical like 10K out or so. So we didn't really get to see what his role was going to be in that lead out. Actually, him and Hodge, who was meant to be the quick step guy for the stage, he crashed out. So it was a defunct sprint for De Koenig, although they ended up getting second place anyway because they're just so stacked. But no, I don't see Cavendish. He's not in this race, but I don't see him winning again.
My thing on Cavendish, and I actually really agree with you, and I thought it was kind of him coming back, or even Wiggins had said, "Oh, he deserves a spot," and I was like, not really. But the fact that he's with De Koenig, if there's a race where he is the only guy sprinting, there's a chance, because that is such an amazing lead out, and they will put him in the position that he can maybe just skate for it. He's not I've seen him, the last few years. He just, even though he's a Caleb kind where he'll surf wheels and do everything he can, he hasn't been on that level anymore. So I think I'm with you on that. Okay, so time trial on stage 2. I imagine this is a Merckx style. They're not really probably requiring anybody to bring bikes out there. Do you know that at all?
I'm not sure. I know it's short. It's like 13 kilometers, quick, tight one.
Yeah,
Ganna.
Right.
Just gonna run away with it, presumably.
Let's try this here again. Stage 3 has a kicker up to the finish. And what do you know about this? It looks like to me it's is it around 10K? 10K,
6.8%. That's Jebel Hafit. So that's actually the most challenging climb. I mean, we'll get to Jebel Yates, which is stage 5, which is longer but not as steep. So this is the steepest one. Look, I think the way that these play out, it's just a matter of tactics. So last year when we had the 2 mountain stages, and both of them were actually just going up Jebel Hafit, one day it was a battle of attrition and one day was long range attacks. So that's really what's going to decide the race. How the teams play their tactics. Are they going to go off for an attack, or is it just going to be who can ride this thing fastest and hold on?
And was it kind of a reversal, but not quite as damaging, like from Yates the first time to Pogacar the second time, I think was my memory?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay, so then we have stage 4, Almaren Island to Almaren Island. Looks like staying right on the same spot.
Massive bunch sprint on that one.
Right.
See who's got wheels that day.
The stage 3 that we just were talking about, the climb, that's pretty wide open, right? I mean, wind could be in effect for every stage, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Stage 5, that's Jabal. Why do you pronounce it? It looks, it's like
I went with Jebel Yates.
I like that. That sounds much better than how I was starting. Is this 20K finish climb?
21.5K at 5.4. So that's a doozy.
Right. I don't know. What would you rather do? The 9K at 6 or whatever it was, or the two, the shorter, steeper, or the longer grinder?
Shorter, steeper. I mean, you don't want to be 10K out sweating like a dog going, 12 miles an hour and still have 10K to go on that in the hot sun. That'd be tough.
Right, this reminds me of, and man, the names are slipping me because I'm old. The Giro that has had one of those early stages a few years ago. That's similar to this. It's just really long, grindy climb. I'm blabbing stuff out I don't know anymore. Stage 6. This is what we do. You're supposed to know everything, so I'll just bring you on. Another sprint stage. What's that? 165K, 2 sprints.
Yeah, this is the cool one. This is the one that ends on that Palm Island. So
okay, tell us. Have you been there?
Yeah, I did go to Dubai once, like 5 or 6 years ago. Went to the top of the Burj Khalifa, do the compulsory tourist attraction thing, and just look out from 100+ floors above at the world's largest sandbox. But it is quite cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. And then stage 7. So I think this starts is it Saturday or is it Sunday to Saturday? Is that what it is?
That checks out. 7 days, starts Sunday. So should be next Saturday. Finale here in Abu Dhabi. Another sprint.
Yeah. Dubai Breakwater, 147K, another great. And I hope I mean, look, now if they don't have crowds out there, you could just say it's COVID, because before it was just, oh, it's out in the desert. There's really not much to see. But now you might at least be able to have a good excuse for it.
Yeah, well, who knows? They might have vaccinated everybody. I mean, they vaccinated the UAE team, so
that's true. That's
money
true.
is power, so they might have vaccinated everybody already.
And they assert their power. So yeah, last year, this is the first one that we had. Everyone was quarantined or held hostage. I don't know what you want to call it, into the hotels afterwards. Yeah, right. I mean, I remember seeing journalists and stuff saying they've locked the doors. We can't get out. So Gaviria, I think he had COVID from this last year, the first time. Is that right?
The first time he got COVID was here. Yeah.
Right. All right. So we have a bevy of riders coming in here for this race. Anyone, kind of Froome, Pogacar, Yates, and then Bennett, Caleb, Gaviria. I think Sepp Kuss is doing this as well.
Mm-hmm. As the front man. So there's no other big guns. So I think they're going to cut Kuss loose, and that should be fun.
Cut Kuss loose. I like that. What do you think of his prospects for something like, this race in particular? I mean, there's a time trial. We haven't really seen much of anything of him trying on a time trial.
I mean, gotta love his odds. It depends on how the team can support him. I think tactics come into play so much in this race. Like last year when they went up Jebel Hafid twice, it was like the one time was a battle of attrition and the gap was seconds. And then the next time there was a long range attack and the difference was a minute. So in terms of overall result, I think it depends on how the teams like attack or don't attack. But look, I mean, he was like one of the best climbers out there last year. I mean, you look at him on the big climb, Col de la Loze, the biggest climb of the Tour de France last year. He was like holding up for Roglic, keeping him on his wheel. So look, I mean, he's going to be one of the best climbers of the year. This first race, so we don't know how he'll do in this one. But overall for the year, super bullish. And I mean, I think he only had one mediocre day when one of the last days in the Vuelta where like he fell off with like 4K to go. Aside from that, he was just lights out, showed up every single day. And when he was given his chances, he took them. Like he took the last stage of the Dauphiné after Roglic crashed out. So when he's been given the opportunity, he's stepped up. So I'd expect the same.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. I mean, he's American. It's great to see a climber like him in general. Wonderful 2020, and I'm really excited for his prospects this year. It'll be interesting to see now that the pressure is kind of on him of, every time he's going to be like a race like this, it's not just a Sepp, it's Sepp, right? I mean, he's a known quantity, so you don't just get the benefit that you did before. So I'll be interested at who else do you see in this race? I mean, we're going to see Chris Froome, and is it too much to expect anything from him, or should, if he starts to just kind of, lose 20 minutes on the first mountain day, we're like, okay, well, this is where we're at.
Yeah. Look, if that's the case, we're going to learn something about Froome. I mean, if he loses more than 5 minutes, that's a sign like it's probably not going to happen for him this year. And I think even 5 minutes would be able to tell you that, just based on the caliber of the riders out there and like what additional trajectory and benefit can he add to himself, from this point after such a long, strong off season of all this recovery. So yeah, we're going to learn a lot about Froome. And I think it's a total toss up as to where he finishes in this. My gut, I don't think he's on the pointy end of this one. I'd be surprised if he finished in the top 5, especially given he can't really make up too much time on the time trial where he might be stronger than some of these guys who will place highly. Yeah. So yeah, that's my take. Probably not top 5.
So if he's in, if he does top 5, I'll be really impressed because, early season, not sure, just coming off last year's Vuelta with, shaky mentality. So if he does top 5, I'll be like, oh, that's solid. I'm almost more interested to see how he does on the time trial than on some of the other things, because if he, it's not a long time trial, but it's enough out there where you can start to separate some, men from the boys in a sense. And if he's in that top 5 on the time trial, you're like, okay, he's got some potential still here. We'll see what he can do. You saying he's coming out with some great training in California. Look, just because you're getting KOMs from Americans doesn't mean you're on form. I'm just throwing that out there. So who else you looking for in this race? As far as sprinting goes, once again, I'm a big Caleb Ewan fan. Not a big Deceuninck Quickstep fan, but I do like Bennett. So I'm a little torn there.
I mean, just looking at how this played out last year, look, long straight sprints. You look at guys like Ackerman, Gaviria, Ewan, Bennett. They're not that far apart from each other. So a lot of it depends on the day, their lead out, their position, all those things. I think the wild card on this, and he had just had such a great year last year, is Giacomo Nizzolo. I think people would still be surprised if Nizzolo is beating them here, but he absolutely can. I mean, he won his own road race. He won the European Championships. He's solid, and he's just coming off that win last week in Almeria. So I think he's the one that can upset everybody. The only thing that would be surprising when it comes to like Gaviria, Ackerman, Ben, or Ewan is if they like miss, like if they're not in the top three, because then it's like, okay, what's going on? Are you not in form? But their team should deliver them to the finish, and I think each day you're going to have a different guy winning it.
Yeah, I agree. Any chance that Movistar gets a win this year? No, I'm just kidding. I didn't have a lot of. They didn't do great last year, but I mean they will get a win, but nothing like before. So
well, I'll tell you what, they got Superman Lopez, and that's a big pickup for them. So that's good. Now the question is, we're going to return to a Movistar of a couple of years ago when they had Mikel Landa and Quintana and Marc Soler and like all the drama. That's TBD, but that was a big pickup for them. I don't think he'll feature in this one, but
really good point. EF education first. We got at least two Americans riding this one, Lawson Craddock and Nielsen Palace. But it looks like they probably are going to be riding for Uran. What are their prospects going forward of still hanging their hat on Uran? Do you think that's wise?
I don't know. I was actually really surprised that he was in a race last week. I don't know if you saw, he broke the heck out of his pinky toe. He like kicked it on his bedpost. No. So this was like a month ago. And he posted some video. He like cut out the pinky on his shoes so that he could let his pinky breathe. But he showed the X-ray. I mean, he like it was completely broken in two. So I was shocked that he's out and like comfortable racing. I think they have to deploy themselves in other ways. Like Sergio Higuita, like what an awesome up and coming young guy. And they've also got Ruben Guerrero, who won a stage last year in the Giro. So I think they got to focus their resources on giving these guys chances. Because, they could let Uran be like, option 1B in the Tour de France, and he'll probably deliver. He'll probably be top 10. But it's, if you focus on him and ride for him, it's at the expense of a lot of potential upside riders.
I could see 4 EF guys being near the front on the climbs. I mean, and near the end. Palace, Higuita, Guerrero, and Uran. You never know. Maybe even Craddock in there.
Totally.
Yeah, good stuff. Any last, who do you got any picks for this race?
On the GC side, I think we're going to learn a lot. I mean, first off, we got Pogačar back. So he's had a huge offseason. I mean, right after the Tour de France, he shut it down. So, who knows what he's been up to the last 6 months. But if he comes in and crushes this race, people should be very afraid. I'm surprised with how many folks are not afraid of Pogačar in 2021, who think like the 2020 effort was a bit of an anomaly and flash in the pan. I don't really think so. And this race might tell us what to expect there. So I think he'll be super interesting. On the Bora side, they've also sent Emanuel Bookman. And last year, Bookman looked awesome. This guy was like one step off the podium 2 years ago in the Tour de France. In a lot of the lead up races, like the Dauphiné and Occitanie, it was like almost like clockwork. It's like you got Roglic, you got Pinot, then it's like Bookman, and it was Guillaume Martin from Cofidis, and all the lead-up races are all rolling together. And Roglic was always first to the line, but then these guys were like right behind. And I thought Bookman was going to have a good tour last year. Injury kind of kept him from it, but it'd be interesting to see if he's going to be looking like a contender again for a Grand Tour GC. Other guy that I think is interesting is João Almeida from De Quinn at Quick Step. He wore pink for, 16 days or something. And look, it wasn't, he was meant to be riding in support of Remco. Remco, of course, with the injury at Lombardia, he got a shot, he took it, and he raced really well, ended up 5th. And he's a super young guy. So let's see how he fares here and if he's going to establish himself as somebody who deserves a leadership position this year for De Quinn at Quick Step.
No, really good comments on all of those. There was another one here. I had thought on, oh, well, Adam Yates is riding for Ineos. So I will be, that kind of development will be interesting for me to see, as well as Danny Martinez, who came over from EF. So you got some movement over there, and just to kind of see how they doing a different structured ride. I'm pulling for Sepp here, but I tend to think in my heart that it's going to be Pogačar. Just downplaying that guy is stupid. You know, winning the Tour of California, doing really well, especially the last week of the 2019 Vuelta, coming up with Roglic. I think he was 4th that year. And obviously what he did last year, just crushing souls, and the whole Jumbo team on the last second to last day there was pretty impressive. So I'm going to think that, but you know, it's just the whole leader race here is scattered with just Van der Poel. He's doing it. I don't know if you noticed that, but he's riding for his Alpes and Phoenix team. So there's a lot of excitement here.
So they also picked up Jasper Philipsen from UAE. So he's got a little bit of help. Now, I don't love this race for Van der Poel unless he's going to like launch a long range attack, maybe on the stage 5 with the longer climb. But
I thought you were going to say the sand.
Yeah, exactly. They send him off road. It'd be great. Then race would be over. But yeah, there's like not a lot of opportunity to like anything surprising on this route. It's like it's either pancake flat and then rolls into like a consistently, you know, long, steady gradient climb. There's not a lot of opportunities for him to leverage his strength. So, I mean, it'd be good to see him out on the roads, but I don't think we're gonna see anything too crazy from him. But he's got some help this year with Jasper Philipsen coming over, bolstering up that Alpes and Phoenix squad a bit.
No, totally. Okay, so those are ours. I don't know how you watch the races. I've got Flow Bikes. I usually do the NBC thing, and I think that's all I've really got now. I don't know how are you watching the bike racing?
Yeah, whoever's covering it. Yeah, Flow, GCN. I got the NBC Sports Gold, whatever's. Usually I got to click between some of them because they'll say they're showing it, and then they're like, oh no, it's actually blacked out here. I got to go to the other app, and so on and so forth.
I had to use the Canadian VPN the other day just to be able to watch the race on Flow, because they're showing it in Canada. So I tricked them that way. Yeah.
By the way, on the Ineos squad, also Ivan Sosa, who just won Provence, is on that squad too. So it's like, okay, that you got all these guys, Martinez, Yates, and Sosa. So I don't know how they're going to divvy it up.
Well, so let's go into some of these other questions. You'd posed them to me, and I'll let you go through them. But why don't we just start with what you made me think of here is there's a time trial. Ganna is going to be in the race. Is there anybody else that's going to be able to come close to him and winning this time trial and or any for the rest of the year?
Absolutely not. I mean, he's won 7 in a row. I mean, and he's done it in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he should just crush this one. I think he can't be perfect though. Like he can't win everything, but he's won 7 in a row. So I'm going to say this year he loses twice, only twice. He's going to win all the rest of the time trials that he enters. Because there's got to be one of those ones like Planche de Belfi. Like he probably wouldn't win that one, right?
Right.
So I'll say there's probably 2 out there where somebody else can get him. That's my guess.
You know, I've mentioned this many times that he first impressed me hugely at the Tour San Juan last year, staying with that group with stage 4 or so, where Remco ends up, you know, winning overall, but it's a bunch of just climbers. And here he's just big rigging this climb, and it was, you know, more of a power climb, but he's still in there with, you know, Remco, who's the UAE rider that American, anyway, he was out there, and then being able to, yes, thank you. And then riding well in the mountains too, you know, when he's in a break at the Giro. So is he like the new Cancellara type of guy? I mean, there seems like all the, you know, Dumoulin's gone now. I don't know how long, but who's really there to compete with him on just this pure time trial stuff? Because it seems like the other guys are kind of getting old. I don't know.
Well, Wout probably for one.
Okay.
And we saw what Ganna did last week. He was in a break all day, and then he just rode everyone off his wheel. And like he did the same thing in when he took the Giro road stage. I think it was like stage 4 of the Giro. He just can ride everybody off his wheel when he attacks. He's got a different gear. So he hasn't been matched up against these guys, but if he's going to attack, there's only a handful of people that can hold on to him. I think one would be like a Wout type person who's an elite time trialist in his own right. A healthy Remco could stick with him. But yeah, there's not many guys.
Yeah. Scary indeed. Okay. You want to go through these? You want me to read them out, or you want to go through them?
Yeah, no, have a go. Yeah. Read through them, and then we'll see See how we fare. By the way,
right.
so I guess two losses for Ganna on
Two.
time trials this year. What's your guess?
That's well, I would like to know the caveat, how many of those are uphill. That's a really good number that he's going to lose. Do you know how many they do a year approximately? I mean, he's done, you say 7 consecutive, but how many time trials has he done already this year? Any idea?
Just one.
I'll say this. I think he's going to be 80%. How's that?
Fine. We'll take it.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. 2 out of 10. I mean, obviously that would be like you. 80%. I think that's okay. And the reason why, I mean, you make the point of, losing 2, you have so much more control on a time trial than, a sprint. You've got to be, in the front, it's the mechanicals, it's all these other things, where a time trial is just like, yeah, I've dialed it in, and, you've already eliminated probably 2/3 of the field before you even start, because they just can't compete. So, all right. What races are you most excited about this year? I'll let you go first.
And not a really controversial answer. Tour de France, simply being that we've been blessed with a couple great ones in a row, and this year with the strength of Jumbo-Visma, although their plans are quickly changing, the strength of Ineos again, and the fact that neither of those teams have the defending champion. Given the course, I'm just really excited to see how they deploy their teams, and it's gonna be a barn burner, because they're gonna be deploying so many resources on this course, and there's so many people can win it. So that's one, and then I'd say second is the Olympic road race course. So many people are throwing their hat into that one and focusing on it. It's an awesome course. Reminds me a little bit of Worlds last year, just the amount of climbing. Hopefully everybody can get there safely. Hopefully that whole thing happens. So the Olympic road race would be my second one. And then the World Championships in Flanders. And that should be another good showdown. Kind of has Wout's name written all over it, but surely we'll see Van der Poel contending much better this year as well.
I have not done my research on most of those races. I don't even remember necessarily I looked the other day at the Tour de France route. So look, that race is always the one to look at, right? And that's simply because, and I'm with you on that one, simply because although I usually like the routes better on the Giro and the Vuelta, but the Tour is the Tour. But then after last year, Jumbo, they controlled day one on. And then they lost it. We've got to recap from that. They've got to make amends. Ineos, they have something to prove too after, shitting the bed last year and basically just having the one win with Kwiatkowski. So they've got something to prove there. Then you've got UAE. Well, we bulked up a little bit. So we've got to obviously prove that we can do this again. And just and Cavendish maybe being there. So the excitement of, and I hope the teams all do their thing where they send their, their best. So obviously the Tour de France. And actually another one I'm looking forward to coming up pretty quick here is Strade Bianche. I always really enjoy that, especially last year. It was kind of one of the big first races we had coming out of quarantine. So for me, that's what it is. And I haven't checked out but I'm glad to hear that the Olympic road race is a climbing one. We'll get hopefully I'm always a little disappointed when you get a world champion or a Olympic champion that's just a little not off the top, just not quite the top tier rider, if you know what I mean.
Sure. I don't think that'll happen this year. I think we're going to be a very deserving winner this year. So who's your pick for Strade Bianche?
It got to be Wout. I mean, for me, it's just the way I imagine he's still, going fine. I mean, last year winning Milan-San Remo, and then Strade was pretty exciting. And then the way he won Strade was pretty exciting as well. But that race is unique because, my outlier that did pretty well a few years ago, we'll see how he goes over here, is Romain Bardet. I think that in his mind, he might just have a little desire, and he seems to go well. So those are my two an easy one and an outlier. Well, how about you?
Yeah, love that. It's tough to not say Wout, because he's going to outsprint. I think he is going to consistently outsprint. Like if he's in these finales again with Alaphilippe, I think he's going to outsprint him. I was very surprised with how good a form Alaphilippe had this past week in Provence. He was all over the roads, like literally, because he went down at one point on one of the stages. I mean, he's just like throwing himself up hills on the street. I mean, he's all over the place, but he's on the pointy end of it. And given the crash at Flanders, I was surprised just how good he looked on the bike. So he said like the first half of his season is really important to him. So I think he's out and pretty serious about those. So he'll be there. And he'll be in the finale, but it's tough to be able to say that he'll beat Wout. I mean, if Wout's just got such a good sprint, he's a tough guy to beat.
Yeah, totally. How about what's the next one we have here? Names that emerged from 2020, what to expect and which we expect to flourish or flounder. Oh, that's a very good one. I'll go first on that one. And you've given me some hints already here, so I can't. Hershey. So I think Hershey is one definitely. I don't know what he can do in a Grand Tour for a GC type of thing, but I really hope he focuses like he did last year of just being kind of the new Valverde on a one-day paper race thing. You know, I'm going to go out and I'm going to win these one-day races, and I'm going to win stages at the Tour, and you know, kudos to him for coming close and then finally getting something. I think you're going to see Sepp making a step up to the next level, if you can actually say that. What I mean by that is, you know, if they let him at all, just kind of play that decoy rider in the race where you're supporting him, but you also need to be in the top 10. You're going to see him easily in the top 5. You know, he pulls off one bad day in the Tour de France last year, and that was it. I mean, he lost 20 minutes or so. But for that, he's stellar. So, except for the time trial at Planche de Belfi, but you know what I mean.
Totally.
How about you? And then I'll see if there's other one that comes. Oh, Gegenhardt, you'd mentioned him. I can't help but think of that as well.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful on Hershey, and I would have had a lot of question marks about Hershey had he not backed up his Tour de France performance. But then he comes back. He was on the podium at Worlds. He took one of the monuments. So he showed he has it. The thing that's kind of interesting on that side of the fence, though, is there's actually this straight, because when the news came out that Hershey was moving off of Sunweb, now DSM, it was like, wow, that's so surprising. And sure, certainly he's probably went because he's going to make more money. But Sunweb has actually had a pretty good track record of like getting rid of riders at their peak. And usually they're like a little bit older, but think back to like Tom Dumoulin. He won his world title with Sunweb, and then like that was it. Warren Barguil, when he won King of the Mountains, that was his Sunweb, and then they parted ways. And like those guys have never quite been the same. I don't think that's the case with Hershey, but Sunweb has this kind of trend where when folks leave their team, it ends up being that they left at their peak. So kind of an interesting stat there. I don't think that'll be the case. Yeah, Kelderman as well. Well, and he had a really unfortunate one because he got stuck in that car crash accident at the with the Boris squad. So that was tough.
But I mean, he left. Yeah. So we'll see how and you know, to Tom's defense, I mean, he leaves, but you know, he had some injuries, some other things. And I don't think he had a horrible year as he seems to have thought he had. Maybe, I don't know. What's your take on the Super Tuck and, or the new, you know, hands over the bars? Banning.
So I did a poll on this one, and a lot of people disagreed with the approach on that should be banned, but it was mostly from the angle of frustration, not necessarily that it was the wrong thing, but like, why are you focused on this when there are so many other things that you should be focusing on?
Right.
When folks kind of got over that aspect of things, like the frustration that was taking up resources and time to push that through rather than focusing on other rider safety items, there's been quite a bit of agreement that like, actually, this is a good thing because like if you have the Super Tuck, then everyone has to Super Tuck. If you don't have the Super Tuck, then it's like, okay, we're kind of creating the same equal level playing field. I'm surprised Wout said he's supportive of the ban. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on it. I think G said he was supportive of the ban as well. So I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on it personally. I haven't done it. I watch people doing it. I watch Froome do it, and I'm like, that looks crazy. But I don't know. I don't know if we should be telling people that they can't deploy a tactic that they feel comfortable doing. I think more consequentially is the hands over the handlebars and kind of moving into that aero TT position, because that's how a lot of these guys, they use this as an advantage to play to their strengths, particularly when they're getting off the front. Look at when Remco went solo 50 kilometers last year to win the Tour of Poland. Look at Ganna getting away from the group. Tim Wellens a couple weeks ago going solo in Bessèges to take a victory. It's like, you get out front. What are you going to do besides drop your hands over the handlebars? It just makes sense. So, and is that really unsafe? You're solo by yourself, nobody's around you, and you got your hands over the handlebars. Doesn't seem like such a safety concern to me.
Well,
but
just to
now we're going to find out what they do. Yeah.
Remember Hershey? He's in the going down solo the Tour de France this last year, and they're talking about what a great descender he is. No, he wasn't solo. I think he was with some other guys, and then he washes out. Well, I mean that can happen too, right? You're off the front. You're being daring on your time. And so the hands over the handlebars. I mean, you're never doing that in the pack. So if you decide to do that, it's no different than just hitting a pothole. I mean, so be it. It's on you. So that to me, it's a little. And I think you're right about like your priorities. You know, we've got a roundabout with 800 meters to go. That's okay. But hey, we don't want you to do a super tuck when you're all by yourself. I don't know.
Totally.
Will Israel Startup Nation place a rider in a Grand Tour podium? That's on you.
I don't think so. And you really got two guys. So as an aside from the podium, I think Michael Woods is going to have another great year. I think he's going to take some stages for them. I think he'll win another Grand Tour stage this year. But you really got Dan Martin and you got Chris Froome. And my vote is no. I think they'll, Dan Martin still, consistently has good legs. He'll put in some results. But I think given the talent that's out there for Froome, even if he is returning to form, that it won't be enough to put him on the podium.
Yeah, I tend to agree because I'm looking through their thing. I mean, one guy that I want to see have a chance, and this happened with Travis McCabe last year, gets a ride and then just COVID happens, doesn't even get a chance. Is James Piccoli, Canadian rider, who got a ride for them last year. He's still back with them, but I don't really see a ton of Carl Frederick Hagen. He's pretty good. You never know. I mean, that's a guy that I want to say fourth a few years ago, and I wanted top 6 maybe in the Vuelta. When he was with Lotto. So you have some potential there. You never know who could come out of this, but I think you're right. I don't see them putting it, but they do have potential with the 2 big firepower guys. So you never know. How about this one? Unpopular predictions. You got these are ones you brought up. So yeah, please. It's your.
Yeah. I've got 2. Well, they're not necessarily predictions, but I think if when the Tour de France course for 2021 was revealed, if Wout van Aert decided, actually, you know what, I want to go for yellow, and this of course assumes like his team would want to get behind him on this when they've got at the time Roglic and Dumoulin and all these things. I think Wout actually on this course would have a better shot at yellow than at green, given the time trialing, given the lack of mountaintop finishes, and his potential ability to steal bonus points on some of the punchier stages. So I think he'd actually have a better shot at yellow than taking green, which is what many people think about. And what he's actually said is one of his goals for his career at this point. So not sure how many people would get on board with that one, but that's something I believe.
He's got to have some devastation in the team, I think, for that to happen. But
yeah, I'm not saying it's practical, but I'm saying if they lined everything up to try to make that happen and it was his priority on this type of course, he could have a shot at it. Not that he would necessarily do it, but that he would have a shot at it.
I don't know if this is unpopular, but I'm going to say that Froome has more of a chance of winning a race, single day, anything, than Cavendish. That's my take.
I would totally agree with that. That makes a lot of sense.
No, not unpopular here.
Me.
Yeah.
No.
What else we got here? Any other factoids or controversial things you want to throw out?
Well, I think everyone probably thinks that the Tour de France green jersey is between Peter Sagan and Sam Bennett again, but my pick is Arnaud Démare.
I mean, I haven't looked at all the sprinting stages to see how that goes. Do you think Sagan will? I mean, I just didn't think he was impressive at all last year. Do you think he's going to rebound this year? Maybe my unpopular prediction would be no.
I think he does. I think he does rebound. I think he had a good offseason. He just did not. I didn't think he looked like he cared last year. He's always got a nonchalance to him, but he just didn't have the fire in the belly as far as I could tell last year. And I was excited to see him. He just had COVID, so he's just done 2 weeks. No, I don't know if he was completely off his bike, but that's a bummer. But I do think he rebounds. I think he has better results than he did in 2020 this season.
Yeah, I don't know if it had to do with the change in life, family life, getting a divorce, maybe some issues there, COVID, maybe just a little bit down. I'm totally reading into it, but that's what we do here because we like to speculate. But yeah, I like to see him. What did you think of the controversy with him even bringing it up just the other day about Wout? I don't think about him at all, but I think about it all the time.
Yeah,
about Wout in the Tour.
But he should still apologize to me.
Right.
I mean, whatever. I mean, we saw look in that move. Sagan definitely. Would you want to take a shoulder from Peter Sagan coming down that finish? He's like a big dude. I would not want. I would not want that. And Peter pushed left a little further than he needed to, for sure. So whatever. I like people jawing at each other. We need a little bit of drama in cycling. So I'm appreciative of his the fact that he doesn't think about it, but that if he does think about it, he still expects an apology.
I know. I don't know if you heard my breakdown of that. It was like it's such a convoluted, but that's Peter Sagan, and maybe that's why we like it. But do you think there's any other people in the sport that can really gin up? You get into other sports, your Michael Jordans or LeBron and what have you, that they just electrify and they bring in a bunch of audience. And is there anybody like that in our sport? Besides, I mean, Sagan's been, but I'm like looking for something else. Not Roglic.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it depends, like for their legs or for like what they say. Because I mean, you got riders who controversial, right? Well, it's not controversial, but I mean, Alaphilippe's becoming like a pretty polarizing rider. Like so many people are falling on like a love-hate side with Alaphilippe. So him with his legs, I mean, he doesn't really particularly say anything controversial, but he seems to be a little bit divisive.
What do you think about him?
I'd say from a riding perspective, well, I love him. I'm a big fan of Julian Alaphilippe. I think his riding style, if you compare the two guys coming down and finishing straight, him next to Wout van Aert, you look at what Alaphilippe's doing and how he handles his bike, and you're like, what are you doing, dude? So I think I could see folks being a little frustrated riding around him, given his riding style in his immediate area. But I do love like the emotion and the panache and his attacking nature and all that stuff. But yeah, a lot of people didn't like, when he crashes, it's kind of the me show and, laying out in the middle of the street and all those sorts of things. So I get it.
That's my exact complaint was, oh, you're down. It's just a wrist and you're laying in the road. So the whole field goes by you and they have to funnel through. But I'll give him this. When you have the world championship jersey and you're showing yourself and you're winning races, I'm a big fan of that. I love to see that jersey on the pinnacle and the pinpoint of the racing. And the other day he's off in a break. They get caught right in the last, K and a half. And he immediately goes to the front to start leading out his team. And I'm like,
unreal.
Yeah. Now I did see someone yelling at him after the race, another rider, and they were kind of going at it. I don't know if you have any insight if you saw that at all either. And I don't know, he's just sporadic. He's like a junior racer to me out there.
Yeah. It's how he rides. Certainly. I did not see anybody jawing at him. I did see the fact that he took that to like 300 meters to go after being off the front. It's just like, wow. Yeah. Pretty unbelievable. But no, I didn't see what anybody jawing at him.
Could have been whatever. All right. So Rob, anything else you want to say out here before, and once again, let everyone know where they can find you online as well.
I think that's it. I think we just about covered it, and it was real fun. Thanks for having me. You could find me TourBreakaway, Instagram, Apple Pod, Spotify, and YouTube.
Great. Well, I'll link to you on the show. And just sad point here, I didn't get the video started recording until a little bit later. So we ran it a little longer just so everyone could enjoy this here. Once again, Rob Dalto of the TourBreakaway podcast. How'd you come up with the name? Why TourBreakaway?
The breakaway, jumping out front. And the URL wasn't taken.
That's perfect. So thanks again for coming on. We'll have to do this again. I understand you're in California for a little bit longer. Is that right?
Temporarily. I was Froome hunting, but I'll be back here.
I'm disappointed you didn't find Froome. So if you're ever up in Northern Cal, come find me. I'll take you out or we'll go for a ride or something. So I appreciate you coming on. Thanks again.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks, everyone. Between Two Wheels Podcast, 224 episodes. Check us out. Give us a like, little link there, and share the show. Help us do that. All right.